All right, Psalm 126. Let's call this one Where? Home. But the more important question in Psalm 126 may be when. Understanding that we started out in, what was it? Psalm blah, 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 blah. Psalm we start out with this week. Y'all shouldn't let me forget like that. 120. We started out in Psalm 120 with a psalmist that wasn't so happy at home, like we said, not so much because of what was going on inside of it, but because he was asking, how long must I dwell amongst those who hate peace? Verse 6 of Psalm 120. This psalmist, however, is going to enjoy going home when during a time of restoration. Helping us to understand that, he begins in verse 1 saying, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with shouts of joy. And like we said early on in looking at the Psalms, sometimes they are like water in the sense that they are simply refreshing. They don't need a whole lot of explanation. And so if you have ever been in a time where you forgot how to smile, but God restored the laughter to your mouth naturally, not in any way that you had to force, then this psalm might just speak to you at that level, and it doesn't need a whole lot of explanation. However, like we said, water also breaks down to the H2O level, and to the degree that it can offer you some additional inspiration, there is additional insight in the psalm that will go on to say that they are restored in a way that allows the nations to know without doubt that God has done great things for them, as he will go on in verse 3 to say, the Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad, as he will finish up the psalm beginning in verse 4, going through verse 6, to once again say, restore our fortunes, O Lord, like streams in the Negev, quite possibly giving us a metaphor that suggests that the restoration is ongoing, continuous, God willing, without end, going back to the pattern we've seen in the Psalms of David this week, where David was committed to creating the kind of environment that God would want to bless. And so likewise for us, to the degree that we crave periods of restoration in our lives, may we be the kind of people like David who look to create the kind of environment that God would want to continually bless. As God willing, he restores our joy from our difficult years or our years of struggle. As this psalmist describes in verse 5, those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. He who goes out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home, thus our title, with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. Once again, as we have from time to time said, may we lead the lives that will encourage God to blank. God willing, this week and moving forward, may we lead the kind of lives that would encourage God to bring us into sustained periods of restoration.